Welcome, everyone, to The Explainer. So today, we're dissecting a really fascinating story from the bustling little village of Sonpur. Now, on the surface, the source material we're looking at today just seems like a simple animated moral story, right? But if you look a little closer, it's actually a brilliant, high-stakes microeconomy case study. I mean, it is literally packed with lessons on monopolies, predatory pricing, and business ethics. So let's just dive right into this and see exactly what a village tea stall can teach us about the modern business world.
We're going to be exploring a kind of golden question today. Does greed always lose in business? Or, to put it another way, do unethical shortcuts actually work in the long run? We see businesses every single day trying to cut corners to maximize profits. So, through the lens of our main character, Kalu, and his tea stall, we're going to analyze exactly what happens when profit becomes way more important than people. We'll see for ourselves whether a corrupt business model can actually survive the test of time.
All right, let's kick things off with Phase 1 of our analysis. Section 1, the village's famous tea.
So Kalu's initial success was built on a really fierce foundation. He was absolutely famous in Sonpur for his strong, spicy tea and hot samosas. He had massive demand and a fiercely guarded secret recipe. In fact, he was incredibly paranoid about the whole thing. Like when a customer simply asked what spices he used, Kalu flat out refused to tell him. He was absolutely terrified that sharing his knowledge would ruin his grip on the market. Now, his early success was undeniable for sure, but it was entirely fueled by this hidden greed to maximize every single penny.
And that grip on the market, it was absolute. Why? Because of one really powerful reason. Kalu had exactly one competitor in the entire village, himself. He ran the sole tea stall in all of Sonpur. In economic terms, he enjoyed a perfect, unchallenged monopoly. This single market dominance is exactly what allowed him to rake in those high profits. But it also bred a really deep sense of entitlement. He actually started believing he owned the customers, which, as you'll see, perfectly sets the stage for the conflict to come.
So what exactly happens when an unchecked monopoly is suddenly challenged? Let's move into Section 2, the new stall and competition.
On a cloudy day, the unthinkable happens to Kalu. A polite, straightforward guy named Raghav enters the scene and opens up a brand new competing tea and samosa stall directly opposite Kalu's setup. Talk about a classic market disruption, right? Kalu's reaction is immediate and aggressively hostile. He marches right over, attempts to bully Raghav, and tries to use his seniority to shut the new business down before it can even boil its first cup of tea.
Which brings us to this pivotal moment, and it brilliantly illustrates a core principle of a healthy economy. The village head, known as the Mukhya, steps in and establishes the ultimate free market rule. He says, if your tea is good, you will earn. If Raghav's is good, he will earn. He explains that competition is actually good for the village and that there is plenty of room for both of them to earn a living, provided, of course, that their products are actually good.
But here's the thing. Kalu doesn't want to compete on quality. He wants total domination. Let's look at Section 3, the samosa price war.
This timeline maps out a totally catastrophic sequence of events. Initially, Kalu's tea and 2 samosas cost 40 rupees. To instantly steal Raghav's customers, Kalu slashes his price. Actually, wait, he doesn't just slash it, he chops it completely in half, down to 20 rupees. Raghav, who is just desperate to survive at this point, is forced to match it. Furious, Kalu drops it again to 15 and even promises customers he'll lower it to 10. Now, the customers were thrilled, obviously, but this aggressive pricing strategy completely destroyed the profit margins for both businesses. Kalu was effectively bleeding his own business dry just to hurt his rival.
And when you destroy your own profit margins, you have to make up the difference somewhere, right? This leads us to the super dangerous consequence of Kalu's price war, adulteration. To survive the extreme price cuts that he himself initiated, Kalu secretly turns to cheap, inferior oil and rotten potatoes. He completely sacrifices the very quality that made him famous just to maintain his bottom line, fundamentally betraying the trust of his loyal customers.
With the market completely destabilized, we arrive at Section 4, greed, adulteration, and conspiracy.
The crucial takeaway here is how differently these two men handle the immense financial pressure. Kalu resorts to selling adulterated food just to cut costs. When a freezing, hungry old man approaches his stall during a rainstorm with only 5 rupees, Kalu furiously rejects him, yelling that this isn't a charity. Meanwhile, Raghav is sticking to clean, honest ingredients. Plus, when Raghav overhears Kalu rejecting the old man, he calls him over and selflessly feeds him for free, treating him with total dignity and respect.
The old man is deeply touched by Raghav's honest generosity, and he leaves him with this really powerful blessing. When someone tries to do bad to you, bad will eventually happen to them.
Now, this isn't just a nice sentiment. Within the context of our case study, it acts as a direct foreshadowing of the inevitable downfall of Kalu's corrupt and vindictive business model.
Because honestly, Kalu's adulterated food strategy wasn't even working. He was losing money. So he escalates from bad business practices to outright criminal sabotage. Under the cover of a massive rainstorm at night, Kalu pays a local villager named Madan to completely destroy Ragov's stall. The very next morning, Ragov is devastated. His livelihood is in ruins. And Kalu? He stands right there in the crowd, playing the innocent bystander, pretending to sympathize with a rival he just secretly destroyed.
This sabotage was the final step in Kalu's weaponized pricing strategy. Just look at this cynical fluctuation. Pre-competition, he charges 40. During the price war, he completely tanks it to 15 just to starve out Ragov. And the literal second Ragov's stall is destroyed and Kalu's monopoly is restored, boom. He instantly jacks the price right back up to 40 rupees. He weaponized his pricing to eliminate competition, only to punish the consumer the moment he regained his power.
Which brings us to a major point of narrative suspense. With his competition destroyed and his prices sky high, Kalu really thinks he's won. But as viewers, we have to ask, can Kalu's truth stay hidden? Can an unethical monopoly built on sabotage and adulteration actually survive without consequence in a close-knit market like this?
Well, it's time for the climax of our case study. Let's look at Section 5, The Truth Exposed.
What happens next is a brilliant psychological trap. The Mukhya summons Kalu and just broadly accuses him of adulterating food and breaking Ragov's stall. Kalu panics, right? He desperately denies it. But then, Kalu asks the Mukhya why he is believing Madan's lies. The catch here? The Mukhya had never even mentioned Madan's name. By dropping the name of his hired thug, Kalu accidentally confesses his own guilt. A classic unforced error. Madan is then brought out and he confesses the whole shebang in front of the village.
Ragov reacts to this shocking revelation with absolute clarity. He says, no matter how much you hide the truth, one day it comes out. It brings our core ethical theme full circle. All of Kalu's scheming, the secret recipe, the hidden adulteration, the nighttime sabotage, it's all laid completely bare. The market always has a way of ultimately exposing bad actors, and Kalu's unethical shortcuts have finally caught up with him.
So what's the actual cost of this kind of behavior? Let's move to our final segment, Section 6, The True Fruits of Karma.
The community leadership absolutely drops the hammer on Kalu with severe penalties. He is ordered to pay out of his own pocket to fully rebuild Raghov's stall. He faces a forced, temporary closure of his own business, meaning literally zero revenue. And, perhaps most painfully for his ego, he has to issue a sincere public apology to the entire village for playing with their health and their livelihoods.
Ultimately, our story ends with market equilibrium restored. Kalu genuinely repents, serves his punishment, and eventually reopens his stall. But this time around, the dynamic is completely different. We are left with a healthy, competitive market where both Kalu and Ragov operate side by side. They both serve clean, honest food without malice. It completely proves that you don't need a monopoly or dirty tricks to run a successful, sustainable business.
To wrap things up, I want to leave you all with a final, provocative thought. In your own life, your career, or your business, in the race to beat the competition, are you actually focusing your energy on building a better product, or are you just trying to break your rival's stall? Think about it. True success comes from the value you create, not the destruction you cause. Thanks so much.